My background in therapy spans 25 years. Originally, I was a drug and alcohol counselor for the family services. I then became disillusioned with the system, and I moved into Chinese medicine. Chinese medicine allowed me to address all these wonderful and weird states that drugs create, to put into words that when I was a counselor, I simply couldn't. When it comes to drugs, it gets very complex. And when it comes to drugs, absolute comments, anything that is absolute as a suggestion, is most likely useless. If it would have been useful, by now we would have solved the problem with the drugs. The fact is that drug rise is such an increase that we can say that the existing method over the past 30 years has not reached its target. In the 60s, it was only 0.02% who smoked cannabis. These days, I never heard of anyone who never did it. According to the Australian, the newspaper, last month, statistics of people who use drugs is 60% in Australia alone. So it has risen from 0.02% to 60%. Why is that? Obviously, everyone tries to find the solution to the problem. Why is that? Why so many people suddenly do drugs? And they ask me at television interviews or radio interviews all the time. And I say, because drugs work. Because drugs are overwhelming. Because once you have done drugs, you will understand that it makes a lot of sense to be stoned, to be on cocaine, to be on heroin, because life is simply easy. Once you're on ecstasy, you can express your emotions. Once you're on cocaine, you can address United Nations. Once you're on heroin, you can relax and don't bother at all what happens to the economy. And if you're stoned, you don't care if the traffic light is red. So the people who don't do drugs go the opposite. Worry about the politics, economy, the red light, etc. So we live in a time where it gets more and more stressful, more and more painful also, due to a lot of other factors, such as nutritional deprivation, spiritual bankruptcy amongst young people, which is a common scenario we talk these days among therapists, which is probably one of the reasons why we've got a lot of young people now doing drugs, as we have never seen before. For example, last week I counseled 3 14-year-old kids, one after another. All 3 of them are shooting up 3 grams of speed a day for 18 months. The teacher never knew. The teacher couldn't quite work out why they were so hyper. The parents didn't know what happened. Where they got the money from is a different story. So what we're dealing with is that more and more people using drugs and doing something that don't know what it does to them, the same as me when I did it. Another problem is that people who do drugs develop a condition we never really had before. And this condition is referred to as post-drug depression. It is something now that is surfacing in clinics all around the world, that practitioners of both modalities, West and East, are faced with. And unfortunately, too few know the solution or the answer to it. At the moment, the answer to post-drug depression is the Holy Trinity. Have you heard of the Holy Trinity? The Holy Trinity is antidepressant, tranquilizers, and sleeping tablets. If this doesn't work, Xanax on top of that. Why Holy Trinity? Because the person who is presenting the depression has got a condition that, from a Chinese medical point of view, is due to deficiency, a depletion of an organ system. Antidepressants from a Chinese medical point of view, do on the body the same harm as speed and amphetamines do. So an already deficient body system gets even more deficient by doing additional drugs, such as antidepressants. From a Chinese medical perspective, antidepressants harm the kidney and the spleen, exactly those organs who are harmed by ecstasy, speed, amphetamine, and ice. The side effects of that are obviously enormous, which we go through later. So unfortunately, these side effects, once it's addressed by antidepressants, get addressed with tranquilizers. But then you have got a new synergy. Antidepressants, tranquilizers, which leads to a new drug, which now involves the liver from a Chinese perspective, which then leads to further side effects, which requires sleeping tablets. Once the sleeping tablets are in, you actually got a new organ involved, which is the heart. Then you've got actually a mixture of kidney, spleen, liver, and heart, leading to proliferation of symptoms of heart conditions, which means anxiety disorders of a huge scale, which that requires Xanax. Once you got the four in the system, you don't have a normal drug anymore, and it leads to some serious side effects. For what reason Prozac in England is only allowed to be prescribed if it says this medication leads to suicide. In America, you're not allowed to prescribe Prozac without tranquilizers and sleeping tablets due to aggressive behaviors, manic behaviors, suicidal tendencies. All those behaviors that we as acupuncturists know too well when we observe drug addicts. So not only do we talk about legal drugs in this context, illegal drugs, we also talk about legal drugs. The boundaries have merged, and acupuncturists all around the world observe conditions where we can't say, is this caused by illegal drugs or actually legal drugs? I have diagnosed patients who had identical symptoms to a speed addict, and I asked the patient over and over again, you are doing hard drugs, you have done hard drugs, and they said, no, I never would touch it. And on further examination, I found out they were doing antidepressants and tranquilizers. Another problem we have is when I'm treating young people and who are doing antidepressants, they believe they're doing something good. I have heard so many times in my clinic where the young kid says to me, I'm really trying to get healthy and happy. I'm doing all the right things. I'm doing my antidepressant every day. I'm doing my tranquilizers every day. I do my Xanax every day, and I'm still not getting better. In my time, when I was a teenager, when I had a big fat joint, I knew it was wrong. When I took acid, I knew it wasn't quite right. And when I shot up speed, I knew this is very, very nasty. I would not have gone to a therapist to say, look, I'm doing all the right thing. I'm smoking dope every day. I'm doing coke every day, and I'm feeling worse. When I took drugs, I took responsibility for my action. I knew I got a hangover next day because of drugs, not because I've done something right. What we got the problem today in the clinic is that young kids, when they get the side effects from the Xanax, believing they don't understand what it is, they're believing they're doing something good. So we have to combat not only the drugs, but also the attitude behind using the drugs, which leads to completely new pathology. So underlying fundamentally to all that is one issue, and that is the issue, desire for drugs. So in my time with a therapist, I had the opportunity to research that on hand, from person to person, ask them, what is the desire behind the drugs? And over the past 15 years, since I have specialized on drugs, I have come across 40,000 different answers, which I will share with you today. And there's a lot of interesting stuff coming forward. But where's my professional background in that regard? It is initially as an acupuncturist, but most importantly, as a lecturer of Chinese medicine. So I've been working as an acupuncturist for 15 years. I have been working as a lecturer for over 10 years. Being a lecturer, I have observed many, many, many students in my time. So I had the opportunity to observe not only those who do the drugs as a patient, but also those who want to do something about it, because 3/4 of my students were actually still doing drugs, which is probably what the public is not aware of, that most students of natural medicine have a drug history. Teaching Chinese medicine is a crucially complex issue, but I also observed that those who have done the drugs had an incredible understanding what Chinese medicine is about. The reason why Chinese medicine is so complex is because it is actually paradox, and it's not absolute. It's always relative, it's always simple, but complex at the same time. It goes into the abstract world, it goes into the invisible world, it goes into these areas that we only can sense but can't see. 95% in Chinese medicine is invisible. It goes subtle. When you teach students the art of evoking qi at the needle, at the acupuncture needle, and catching the qi, it requires a state of the mind that transcends the conscious mind. It requires a state where you transcend deeply into your subconscious mind, and if you can, into the cosmic consciousness or superconscious mind, what the Chinese refer to as the subtle forms of the qi. If you put a needle in purely conscious and mechanically about your intent, you will hurt the patient, inflict pain, and do a lot of bleeding, but not qi. So in order to get into it, you need to transcend what you touch by sitting back, but at the same time doing it, which is the paradox aspect of Chinese medicine. You're letting it do without doing it. Then you grasp that invisible world that surrounds the needle, that comes to you. You're transcending the deeper states of the mind. And suddenly you feel something that is very obvious, and you work with it and it gets, oh, very exciting. And somehow it resembles the drug state. So students who have done drugs, on the first session, whoa. Those students who didn't do drugs, where is it? What is it? How does it feel? Within 1 week, those on drugs understood it. And when I talked about paradox concepts, such as when they asked me, is this a kidney yang deficiency? Yeah, but it's actually yin involved. Ah, yeah, I get it. Whereas the intellectual person who got caught in the conscious mind, is this kidney yang? Yes, but it's also yin. Why is it yin? Can't be, it's yang. You see, it's in Chinese medicine, it is yin and yang. It never says anywhere yin or yang. That means in Chinese medicine, we think big and small at the same time. We think about the end goal, but we think about the moment. We become one. And those of us who do Tai Chi know exactly what that feels like. You're in a state of not doing, but at the same time you do it. And you get in between that state, between the yin and the yang, and you feel something very true coming forward. And this is what I observed by those who do the drugs, that truly feel it and getting into it. However, what I also observed is that those who do the drugs, in many ways, they understand this, what we just talked about, but they also had enormous problems in other areas. For example, all those good students with the qi and the drug references simply couldn't be bothered about accountancy. They couldn't be bothered about figures and words, and they couldn't understand this topic called clinical law and ethics. Most of them didn't turn up, and if they turned up, they were pretending to read, and most likely failed the subject. When it came to bookkeeping, they were even worse. When I asked them about, did you get the file, did you get the chart? Oh, I've got it somewhere, I don't know where. And then I found it was in the back of a cigarette packet written or something like that. On the other hand, those logic people, charts were enormous. They understood the mechanics, they understood the mental aspect of the clinics on all levels. They knew exactly what to do to get the patient in. But when the needle came in, something wasn't quite right. So what I observed in my time was two different fronts in my classroom, non-stop. Initially, I didn't want to acknowledge what I saw and decided this can't be. After years doing it, I realized there's more to the coin than just that. So my interest in drugs developed more and more and more and more. And it came back to me. Because I realized that drugs were doing something enormous, but they were also doing something that is not very pleasant. And in order to address that, what is unpleasant and destructive, I need to understand first, why does it make it pleasant in the first place? So if we understand drugs, we will be able to create and work with drugs. And my mission is to work with drugs, not against drugs. Because if you fight against drugs, you only create more problems. As we all know, we need to change the demand, not the supply. Because working in the field for 25 years on the legal side, 5 years before that in the illegal aspect of the drug dealer, I know exactly that the law, no one bothers about the law. You always find a way around it. Because if the desire for drugs is within you and you do want the drugs, you will do the drugs regardless of what the politician will tell you. I have never ever heard a young kid telling me, look, I can't do drugs because John Howard says drugs are bad. And I really like that picture that was going around on the internet when John Howard's 60th birthday was on, and it was with a photo of Mick Jagger beside it, because they're the same age. And underneath it says, say yes to drugs. So we can see, when it comes to drug, there's a lot more going down than actually telling people drugs are bad for you. Whenever I read my reviews in the newspapers, I cracked up laughing. I said, oh, look at this comment. You know, and we just usually had a look at these brochures and we mold up our black hash on it or used it as a straw for the Coke. And it was hip to have posters from it in the bathroom. When you get too much and you vomit, you look at it. Maybe they're right. So I've never met a drug user who actually looked at it seriously. The only person I've seen who actually got affected by the anti-drug campaigns are parents who never took drugs. They are worried shitless. And they ring me up and oh, John Howard, oh. And I say, no, worried, just wait. And we need to talk about why your son or daughter is doing the drugs. Because my philosophy is that unless you have an alternative of a better drug, you always will miss when you stop it. And this is what I observed with all those people I have worked in my time, that if you ever have opened up your mind with drugs, you simply can't go and stop this. Stopping the drug is not the solution, because stopping the drug means you will be thrown into an emptiness that will linger in you for the rest of your life. So in many ways, I really believe that if you have done drugs, there's only one way to go: continue the journey. Just stopping the drug is not the solution. And this is what the purpose of my work is, to share that, what you can do once you have done drugs, because I don't focus on not doing the drug, I focus on what you've done in case you have done it. Because this is a much bigger problem. Because we can't stop a person doing drugs. Because no one on this planet can tell you why people do drugs. There's no sensible answer to the question, why do we do drugs? Because in all my times, I have seen every background in people who have done drugs. It can't be the family, it can't be the mother, it can't be the father, it can't be the environment. Every person I deal had a complete opposite environment to the previous one. Good families, bad families, pain, no pain. There is no sensible, logical answer to why people do it. There's only one way, that some people need to do it, and we need to cater for those who need to do it. And once you have done it, we need to work with that case. If you have the desire for drug, what does it mean? How can we work with it so we can continue this journey to avoid you becoming empty for the rest of your life? when it comes to drugs, in order to continue the journey, it is spirituality which will continue the journey. But it will not be that sort of like very straight spirituality what we think it is. It might be an extremely bent form of spirituality. But it will be at least a very productive, interesting spirituality, because when it comes to spirituality, you can't really define it. Just because you have to look in a certain way, it does not mean that that is spirituality. Spirituality means basically the sacred, direct experience of the sacred. Direct experience of the sacred. And this is what we need to deal with. And Chinese medicine is really well equipped to address this. Because Chinese medicine looks at energy as the basis for reality. And in Chinese medicine, what we have is the energy field, the human energy field known, HEF, human energy field, with all its meridians moving to every aspect of this body. At each of this acupuncture point, distribution is taking place for the rest of the body. The human energy field is the exact shape of this figure. We don't talk aura, we talk human energy field. These meridians are like an irrigation system that irrigates each of these aspects of the body. So irrigation or distribution of qi is what the human energy field is all about. So up here we have that human energy field in depth. We've got the main meridian moving along up the arm, having acupuncture points every so often. And at the acupuncture point, it distributes into the internal. And it goes to the organ. And at the organ, then it returns back to the external. The meridian takes qi or energy all along to this organ. So the energy is fuel for the organ, so that the organ can do its work. And if there's lots of qi in the organ will do its work effectively. Chinese medicine is psychology and medicine in one. Chinese medicine is body-mind medicine. In Chinese medicine, we don't separate between body and mind. The body creates psychological, emotional, physiological, and spiritual manifestations. And the organ is responsible for that. And we're going to look at that in depth. We're going to look at this meridian in depth. So in here we have the main meridian moving along. This is the acupuncture point. At the acupuncture point, it goes internal. And while it goes internal, it then feeds each of these organs with energy. So it moves in and provides all this energy for the rest of the body. As the organs create reality, what we can say is that the organ, if it has got its qi, will do its job effectively. And here we have all the qi moving to the heart. The heart is producing the emotion associated with the heart, which is love, excitement, and joy. The qi is taken to the spleen. The spleen is responsible for feeling centered, grounded, focused. As all the qi is available at the spleen, that means the person feels centered, grounded, mental clarity. The qi is taken to the lung. That means the person feels in the now, living right now here. All the qi is taken to the kidneys. The kidneys produce the experience of willpower and strength. As all the qi is available at the kidneys, it will provide that experience. The liver is responsible for producing the experience of happiness. As there's lots of qi available at the liver, basically the body feels happy. And all the qi is taken on along the rest of the meridian or to the other remaining meridians, making the body move effortlessly. So what you're looking at is the human energy field of someone who has got all the free flow in order to experience joy and love, focus and grounding, mental clarity, living in the now, willpower, happy, body effortless. So what we're looking at is the human energy field of a 1-year-old child. If you look at a child, you look at the eyes of love, pure love. The child knows exactly what it wants. The child lives in the now. The child has got lots of willpower. And the child is happy. And the child, I have never ever treated a child come to my clinic complaining of sore neck or lower back pain. So that means in Chinese medicine, it is said, this is what we are. We are given this to us. So what happens? Very simple. The child meets the elements. It meets the elements. The child, in its nature, in its free-flowing nature, is destined to explore. A child will get bored sitting in this room without exploring. He wants to move around. The first thing he wants to do, he wants to go for these silver-looking things. And what happens? It will trying to creep up, and it tilts the table due to the weight distribution, and it experiences gravity as the object's moving towards the child. Or the heat. It sees a red flame, wants to touch it. Or cold ice cubes. Or it's not aware that if you continue crawling on this table, where it's finished at the edge, that there's a height. Or the parents tell, no, you can't do this is wrong, this is bad. Or in case a child does experience one of these elements, they will reinforce the shock. So what we're looking at is a child destined to explore, but every time it meets the elements, such as heat, it goes, and then it meets something else. It gets a shock all the time. This is detrimental to the energy flow. And this is important because this is the development of pathology in later life. Because the untrained experience with the elements leads to shock and disruption of the flow of the chi. Every time the child explores and hits an element, it experiences shock, it disrupts the flow, that develops eventually into blockages. So the child is destined to explore. However, it meets the element and shock. However, it continues moving forward. And what happened then is only a little bit gets through, so it gets more and more careful. But at the same time, blockages have developed. And this is where we now look at the adult human energy field. And what we have now is a slightly different scenario, except that this time there is this block acupuncture point is slightly bigger than before. So because it's blocked, only very little bit of chi is getting into the internal. And as a result of that is the organs don't have that much chi available to work with. And as each of the organ has got only that little chi, that means it can't produce the emotion it's supposed to produce. So what it produces is exactly the opposite emotion to that what it's supposed to do. So at the heart, it means the opposite of love and joy is shock and depression. The opposite emotion for mental clarity is being scattered, unfocused, and off-grounded. Living in the past, not in the now. Can't embrace the future, scared of the future. The opposite of strength and willpower is weakness and fear. The opposite of happiness is cranky and angry and frustrated and depression. And no chi is moving along the main meridian. It means the body aches. So what we have is actually an energy field now resembling slight depression, scatteredness, unfocused, living in the past, no willpower, and unhappy, frustrated, and achy body. Obviously, 50%, according to the population, don't want to accept that. And I was one of them. And what we do instead is, we're going to take lots of cocaine. Drugs all got one thing in common. All drugs, doesn't matter what drug. The drug is destined to ignore the blockage and to override the blockage in order to create a massive flow of qi throughout the body. What you have now is a situation where the organ have got so much energy available, so much qi, so much nutrients, that it can provide a peak function of the organ. That means as soon as the cocaine enters the bloodstream, flushes the heart with lots of qi, intense joy and excitement. At the spleen, very focused, very centered, very grounded, very clear-minded, and love solving problems. If you have ever been at a speed party and you're the only one sober, you will know what I mean. Because all the other speed users, wow, there's someone who can listen. Let's go, and woof. And you will be swarmed like mosquitoes to the light. And everyone, yap. So when you have speed in the system, it really does make you focused, centered, and talk lots. The lungs are flushed by qi. This means you're living right now, right here. Everyone who has done drugs knows the sensation. As soon as the drug enters the bloodstream, the only thing that matters is NOW. And you want to recapture that now, as long as possible. At the kidney flushed by cocaine, it gives you so much strength and willpower that you can address the United Nations, as I said before, because you got so much strength there where there's no fear. And the liver, extremely happy. And as the qi continues flushing with lots of qi along the body, it means the body is fluid like a baby. And you can tell when you go to the nightclubs who is actually on speed. The way they dance, you can tell this is speed. You can tell those who are on ecstasy, because ecstasy actually works by spleen and heart. They go, whoa. So they not only move, but they also express the sensation of the movement, verbally and expressively by movement. You can tell who is stoned, because they're like, whoa. Because the liver is responsible for movement. Can't be bothered dancing. Just stare instead. And you can tell who's drunk, because they're all over the place. So, and you can tell who's sober, because they're looking around. What am I doing here? So you can tell pretty much on the behavior what organ has been enhanced. And from a Chinese medical perspective, it's very interesting to actually research in these sort of environments and really see how it works. If drugs would work, continue like this, if this would be all there is, I would still do drugs. So why did I stop drugs? Because there's a consequence to that action. And because the drug overrides the blockage constantly, overriding. What it does, it makes the blockage bigger and bigger and bigger. Over time, the blockage gets so huge and therefore affecting the internal life to such an extent that the flow to the internal organ system is completely inhibited and deprives organ system of all nutrients and qi. And not only create a lack of flow of the qi but also make the organs physically shrink in size, which has been revealed by autopsies done on young speed users who died of overdose of drugs, who at the age of 25 had organ conditions of someone of 80 years of age. And this is what it looks like, post-drug human energy field. As you can see, the organs have shrunk. The blockade had really reached massive size. Only very, very little chi gets internally. All the energy, and this is important, make a note of that, all the energy is here. Nothing is here. Energy can't be neither created nor destroyed. And this is where post-drug activities work. We work with this. Because everyone who has done lots of drugs has actually put in lots of energy. However, this energy is stored now here. It's sitting there, potential energy not been used yet. This is the reason why contemporary drug campaigns don't work, because no one goes here. And this is where, if we address it, we will really deal with something enormous, which, if we don't, will lead to a major scale of post-drug depression by the end of the decade. However, if we find a way to utilize this which is stored here, we make a massive change to our society, which most likely will lead to a massive scale enlightenment. However, at the moment, post-drug human energy field means that all this energy is stuck here but not here. That means each of the organs have got hardly any chi to do its work. So what you have is a heart with not much chi, which means anxiety, insomnia, depression. The spleen, hardly any chi at the spleen, means very scattered, very off-grounded, can't think clearly. No chi at the lung means I'm stuck in the past. I'm stuck. I can't break out. The lung in Chinese medicine is associated with the metal element. The metal element is the element associated with changing and responsible for your destiny. Because in Chinese medicine, it is the metal which chops the wood, and wood is about direction. So as this is completely weak due to no chi, the person can't control their destiny. When I worked for family services and we counseled drug users non-stop, we got nowhere because lungs were deficient. And they may understood it mentally what was going on, or they went to NA meetings and constantly expressed, I am an addict, like that. But what's happening inside needs to be addressed, so that truly the desire for changing the destiny comes from within, and take the bull by its horn and say, bugger this, I'm going to take my life in my own hands. The kidneys, no chi at the kidneys means no willpower and lots of fear. So telling a drug addict like this in this state, stop drugs, get a job, get your act together, no willpower. They may understand while you talk to them, but I can't just get it together. The liver, no chi at the liver means liver chi is stagnant. If the liver chi is stagnant, you feel cranky, aggressive, and very violent at all times. The liver is responsible for movement of chi in every direction of the body. The liver's job is to keep the energy flowing. If energy does not flow, the body perceives it as a threat, assuming I will die. In order to change the situation, the liver's job is to take responsibility for it and make you take change. That means I'm getting angry. If you're very, very tired, fatigued, but you get angry, suddenly you got lots of energy. I've never seen a tired, angry person. someone who's aggressive in that moment got enormous energy, and that is regulated by the liver. So if someone who's got no chi in the liver will be constantly aggressive, and you can do counseling all day long, it will not go there unless you build this function here. Then the rest of the body, it aches all the time. The body aches and aches and aches. Because every acupuncture point is like this and nothing moves through. To give you an example of that, quickly find this acupuncture point we got on the board, and you have your arm in 90 degrees angle, and the point we're looking at is colon 10, large intestine 10. Put your index finger to the crease of the elbow, to the end of the crease, put your index finger on it, then your middle finger 2 inches forward to the protuberance of this muscle called brachyradialis, and then press as hard as you can. Can anyone feel that? If not, I can feel it for you, but I would not recommend that. Can you feel it? Yeah. Right up here, this one here.
Oh, there.
Anyone else game enough? No? On this elbow there.
Oh, forward.
Right up here. So you have the elbow in the crease, this point. No, not away from the crease. The one there. The one, yeah. This one there. Yep. This one there.
Yeah.
All right. Look, what's going on here is, yeah, this point here.
Oh, right.
This point you don't feel normally. However, if it would be blocked like that, you would feel it. And now imagine you have got 365 acupuncture points on your body. And you have got 365 people like me sitting on each of these points. Non-stop, 24/7. You got acupuncture points on the stomach area, on the chest, on the shoulder, on the head, on the legs. Now imagine having 365 people sitting on you non-stop. Could you imagine how you feel? And then I would go to you, come on, snap yourself out of it. Come on, it's just in your mind. Come on, get your act together, go to work. All what happens in that moment is pain, pain, pain. So what you experience in that moment is what a junkie feels like 24/7. This is what a drug user feels like. So next time you talk to drug users, remember, this person has got 365 people sitting on their points. And you just can't go there and say, look, get your act together. You have to get first the points in order. And that this works tremendous, I have seen in my time on a regular basis. As soon as you start working with these acupuncture points and alleviate them, you can start rationally approaching it. Unless you work on the physical first, you will not be able to address the emotional and spiritual ramifications of drug abuse. And this is what we as acupuncturists know so well, that unless we go physically onto it, we will not solve the problem. So the question is obviously, what can we do? And this is where we in Chinese medicine have got the answer. So stagnant energy, as you could see, it was stagnant. It develops into organic blockages. It becomes an organic blockage. As it becomes an organic blockage, it is crystalline in nature. It's like a crystal. So not only do you imagine this energy being blocked, but you also need to imagine it as a crystal like of organic nature who now is under the influence of the piezoelectric effect. Piezoelectric effect is utilized in every appliances in our house and also in machines such as the electric lighter. You know the cigarette lighter, the electric lighter, you push down and the flame comes up. In that electric lighter is a crystal. And pressure is applied on that crystal, which is piezoelectric. That means in that moment when you apply pressure on that crystal, the energy is set free. And that energy, that spark that comes out of it, is connected to the butane gas. It becomes the flame. So a piezoelectric effect is utilized in all forms of therapy and is the basis of energy medicine, which the West has adopted in 1999. And this looks like this. So what you have is the scenario of our drug user having the chi moving to the acupuncture point. Only very little chi is moving through. And as I mentioned before, I stressed that energy is in this point, but not here. Everyone agree? All the energy is here, because, as you all notice, in that moment when I pressed your point, you could feel a lot of energy. Suddenly, you were not suddenly, oh, I'm tired. If not, I can do that experiment again. You will not experience tiredness in that moment. You will experience a lot of energy. Just get me out of it. You know? So all that energy obviously needs to be channeled. Ideally, you want to channel that. Get it. Oh, I'm going to sit in your point. You took it to your kidneys. Can you imagine you could do that? That means sitting on your points is actually bliss. Because basically, this is what we do. We apply the pressure on it, and it reduces the crystal, flushes it through. That this works, I have seen my first job for Quiver, which was a government agency program to look after heroin addicts to come off heroin by natural means. My first patient arrived in the clinic, and this patient was a bikie, 10 years on heroin, but 1 day off. He committed to the program to go off it as opposed to take methadone, because he knew methadone will be the same as heroin. Why not stay on heroin? So I put the needle in. However, when he came in, you've got to imagine him cramping stomach, dizzy, constantly on the edge of vomiting, really cranky, and no attention span at all, and really pissed off, and then bigger than me. So I put him on the table, and he was like scratching all over, you know, like. So I finally got the arm down, put the needles in. I put myself in the chi, and while using the needle, right on it, doing all the work, within 2 minutes, his physical display of symptoms dissipated. And he said straight after, said, "Hey man, what did you put on the needles?" He said, and I never forget these words, he said, "This is a drug-free treatment and you're using morphine." The person you can't fool is a junkie. If people still believe that acupuncture operates on suggestions of the mind, I always tell people, go to a junkie clinic, to one of those acupuncture clinics, treating junkies, and see that the power of suggestion is not possible to work on those people. Because if this would be possible, you could have the power of suggestion, oh, that's nice to sit on this point. So the power of acupuncture on this crystal is phenomenal. And within 5 minutes, he was blissing out. And he said, "Oh man, this is awesome." I said, "Shut up." Because now I was in control. I was really good, you know. And I was working with the points, and he was going off. You could see, oh, he was like, whoa. His cramping was going off, and he was like really just transcending deeply into the state, because if you got cold turkey, you're not in the body. He was completely sunken in the body. He was like, he could completely accept himself normally the way he is. After 25 minutes, I took the needles out. He said, "Man, give me those needles." I go home, I bliss out on nothing. Okay, I put the needles, obviously, put them in an allofoil, you know, nicely like this. Showed him the points where to put it. Didn't go down very well with the administrator of the center, because he came back 8 hours later bleeding all over. I thought my inappropriate sense of humor would have been understood by him, but it wasn't. And the next acupuncturist, because we worked in 8-hour shifts, because we have to do it every 8 hours. I obviously wasn't on duty because my duty finished by then, and he had to deal with all the misery. Anyway, I saw him a couple of days later, and he said, that treatment really changed his mind. And I know him still, I still see him every now and then. And I said, so what do you mean? And he said, the reason why I didn't stop drugs is because I was scared of leaving it behind, because I knew what the drugs were doing to me and I needed it. But the treatment showed me that the journey can continue. I knew in that moment what happened in the treatment, when whatever you call what was happening. But it resembled so much to that what I was looking for while I was doing drugs, that I suddenly understood that actually stopping the drugs will not stop the experience. So he was inspired from within, and then the whole journey began. And that was 10 years ago, and he's obviously now working with other drug users. He's an acupuncturist, and a whole lot, you know. So when we talk about this acupuncture point, we talk about piezoelectric effect. And we talk about, for that reason, about piezo strategies. And in my time, I have identified 5 strategies which will address this blocked acupuncture point and utilize it for the benefit of those who have done the drugs. The first one is obviously acupuncture, but also body work. Any forms of deep tissue massage will do exactly that, what the needles were doing. I even recommend most people to start off with the acupuncture for 2 weeks, then go body work for 3 months, and then maybe acupuncture combined to really truly address it. In the initial instances, you obviously need acupuncture every 8 hours. Once you move through the barrier and you actually you broke through the initial turkey, etc., you then do it twice a week, and eventually you do it every week. I would not recommend anyone who have done drugs to stop doing this. I have been doing it now for 16 years, every week. And you really realize very soon, hang on, this is a part of life. In China and in Japan, body work is understood as a regular means in order to remain healthy. In the Chinese philosophy, it's about maintenance, avoiding ill health. Therefore, having every week someone sitting on your points and de-obstruct your points, reduce the blockage, as opposed to making your blockage bigger and bigger and bigger, and by the time you're 65, you become a victim for the nursing home. Longevity is a huge issue in Chinese medicine. They achieve this by constantly keeping the energy flowing freely by reducing the blockage on a daily basis. The next one is herbs. Herbs, I call it the solvent meridian piezo, because Chinese raw herbs and high potency supplements both work together in the same fashion, that these herbs enter the meridian system and then search the meridian systems for obstructions. And once they meet the obstruction, they will de-obstruct the obstruction in the same way as the solving action of dishwashing liquid. If you got a greasy pot and you want to wash this pot under hot water, you can scrub all day, nothing will happen. However, 1 drop of dishwashing liquid, the grease will come off within a second. This is what herbs do on crystals. Yes? Everyone get that? Very, very important. Correct diet. If the food is correct, it becomes medicine. If the food is incorrect, it becomes an obstruction builder. And we have seen, as acupuncturists, pulse and tongues presentation of those of drug addicts or drug users, but all they have done is daily McDonald's. So wrong foods will do exactly that what drugs do. Then he gets into chi training, and this is a very important issue, and I really quickly want to go through with you with this. It only takes a few minutes, so I need you to stand up, please. So I need you to stand I have a bit of space. So where you have that range around you. Yep. So you're going to stand slightly shoulder width, a little bit more than shoulder width. You have your knees bent and your toes crowed in like a crow. You open up the legs, we call it open up the qua in Chinese medicine. At the same time you sink into your hips, into your legs, hang on, woof. You have the arms forward in the same fashion as if you would read a newspaper. And then this part of your palms, it's the center of the palms, it's an acupuncture point called pericardium 8. It's the fire point of the heart. It is this point where healing energy leaves the hands and does healing like Reiki and Qigong healing. This point is connected to Yin Tang, the third eye, the seat of the soul. So you have your hands looking at your palms, connecting your Yin Tang, third eye, from the center of the palm, having a triangle between the two palms. Can you see that? That connects up to the soul, but at the same time to the heart, which then connects it via the three heaters to the earth, the spleen, solar plexus chakra, base chakra, connects the whole body. At the same time, you have your thumbs up in this fashion. At the same time, you imagine a hook at the back of the head connecting to heaven, and you're supported from heaven like a marionette puppet. At the same time, you have the size of an orange under the armpits. At the same time, you relax your shoulders. And then you breathe in like a baby. By breathing in, you expand your stomach like a big, like a beer gut, yeah? And breathe out by contracting. Whoa. Breathe in, pot belly. Breathe out, six pack. Pot belly, six pack. Pot belly, showing off. Feeling normal, show off. So every time you breathe in, extend the stomach. When you breathe out, So every time you breathe in, you breathe into the pain. When you breathe out, sink into the body. When you breathe in, breathe into the pain. Breathe in. And breathe out by sinking into the body. All right. Now imagine doing that for 20 minutes. Okay, please sit down. I will go through with this. Can you see how this already makes you very grounded? And a lot of energy coming up suddenly. Very hot suddenly. I do this in this weather just with shorts. I do my Qigong every morning 5 o'clock, and I did the park this morning 5:30 with hardly anything on. Qigong masters actually do that in snow, and they melt the snow around them. It's awesome. So I'll show you quickly what happens here. What the Qigong does is doing exactly that, what the piezoelectric effect of the body worker is doing. So, as you remember, as you can recall, after about 5 minutes doing this, your arm starts to shake. If not, you're welcome to stand longer if you want. So, what happens is that your muscle wants to hold up the arm. However, you can't use your muscle to hold up the arm because this will go you driving nuts. What is intended is that the energy holds up the arm. So what's going on is here, the reason why it is shaking is because the heart meridian and the large intestine meridian are under pressure. The energy wants to move through but can't because it's so uncomfortable. The posture applies a lot of stress on very important acupuncture points. And these acupuncture points are the lung and heart meridian right on the arms. So what happens is you have the same scenario as a body worker sitting on these points. However, with the correct breathing technique, you breathe into the discomfort, keep breathing in and transcending. And what happens is you're applying piezoelectric effect on these crystals. And what happens? Suddenly the energy is moving through the crystal by de-obstructing the point. And that goes clack. And that moment, heart meridian is completely flowing freely, providing the heart with lots of chi, providing the emotions of love, excitement, and joy. At the same time, you've got the hip meridians, the liver and gallbladder. After 5 minutes, it really starts to get hard work, and the legs start shaking. If you persevere with the correct breathing techniques, you de-obstruct the liver points, providing the liver with lots of chi, feeling happy. At the same time, the spleen meridians, stomach meridians, below the knees, stomach 36, are completely under pressure, making your legs shake and sweaty all over. However, you persevere, breathe in. Eventually the obstruction, de-obstruct, provides all the chi to the spleen. Mental clarity, focus, intense grounding. At the same time, the chi at the sole of the feet, kidney 1, your feet hurt and burn. By de-obstructing the points, it opens up the chi flow to the kidney. So initially, this posture is torture. After 20 minutes, by breathing into it, it becomes the opposite. Suddenly very happy, whoa, joyful, exciting, love, grounding, centered, and lots of strength and willpower. Needless to say, as soon as I felt Qigong, I was doing it everywhere. Because once you do Qigong, you realize that you can do exactly that, what the drugs were doing. And as soon as I discovered that, I never stopped doing it. And since then, by my first few years, I was exploring it everywhere, going even deeper, taking the forms even really deep, and trying to really de-obstruct as much as I can of that what was obstructed. And whenever I was waiting for the bus as a student, whoa. One day I was driving by train from Brisbane to Bundaberg, visiting my family, and in those days the trains had 2 carriages with this round in between, yeah. So I was in between, one foot on one carriage, the other on the other. Wow, the ultimate Qigong experience. You really get addicted to it, but you get healthy at the same time. And what happens is you really start tripping. And because once the energy starts opening up, you're losing all conscious references to the external world, the way you perceive it by your conscious mind. You open up to the internal world. You open up to inner dimensions. You get psychedelic, colorful. You hear voices. You hear stuff going around you. And you're back there where you were when you started doing the drugs. Then, the next one, the 5th one, is the effortless, simple, spontaneous surrender piezo. This is the highest form of the piezo. This is the domain of the yogis. This is the domain of the masters. This is meditation. I always stress not to confuse meditation with relaxation techniques. Meditation begins after level 4. And we always recommend in our work, people will go on the spiritual path, do this first, all these 3 first, and then after 3 months, when you get strong, maybe after 6 months when you get strong, start with this. And then do that for 3 years, and then go here. Or maybe even do this for 5 years before I go there. What happens with meditation is that you get initiated by a master. A lot of the old masters did it by the thumb on the 3rd eye, or they put their hands on you, or they be in the presence in the room. And what they do, they ignite that Holy Spirit force within you. And that means they open up the mind in the same way what drugs would do, but they're connected to the positive astral world as opposed to the negative astral world what drugs do. But they also do, they give you the opportunity to be in the piezo state without doing the form. So it allows you actually to go into that Qigong state without using the effort. So instead of standing there for half an hour with effort, you just do it when you drive a car, woof, without doing any forms, or just sit there. And it works exactly the same. And once you reach that level, there's no way that you ever would return to drugs. Because by that time, drugs are so boring. You look at drugs and say, why would I go there? I got a much better drug. And this is when once you reach that level, there's no way that you would even think about doing it. The same as you wouldn't think about hitting your thumb with a hammer because it feels good afterwards. It's dumb. Why would I do that? And that's what drugs feel to me, and that's what drug will feel to anyone who goes into this level. There's no way that you have to concentrate just for today. I'm not doing my drugs. There's nothing worth you would think about. There's no way that you have to enforce it, because once you got a better drug, you got a new reference point. And this is important, because a reference point in your mind is the one which will determine what you will do in your life. Once you experience love, you will search it. Once you experience the light by drugs, you will look for it. Once you discover the real light by this sort of stuff, you've got a reference point that will be with you for the rest of your life and many lifetimes after, right up to the source. So what we got now is a situation where we basically are confronted with having looked at an obstruction from this point of view by actually taking lots of drugs, bad diet, or lack of exercise, or follow the path of the piezo. And as you can see, the path of the piezo actually makes all these organs grow again, because all this qi moving into the organs make organs regrow in its original size, which means you actually reverse your aging process. Drug users, like 20 years ago, I looked 20 years older than what I'm now. So I reversed all that from building the organs from within. And this is where longevity of Chinese medicine comes into. Once you build your organs from within, aging process goes backwards. And you start getting younger, and you're actually feeling more fresher. However, the important thing is, this actually resembles the energy field of that what we looked at in the first place. This is the energy field of the child. And this is probably the reason why the masters say we only can enter the kingdom of heaven unless we are a child. And maybe that's what they mean. So these days we have got this problem facing us. And that is, all of us know about this. And we all know what it feels like not have enough qi in the internal. And the unskilled response to an obstruction, unfortunately, always makes the obstruction bigger. So the unskilled response to an obstruction increases the size, and we unfortunately go lower and lower. However, with that, what we offered these days in our time is like a new phenomenon. And that is the aspect we can reduce it to the point so that we get higher and higher. And this is what we have now, the system. So we never had that in our history before in the Western world as such, that we now have available to us all the tools in order to become enlightened. And this is exactly what we are faced with. And most likely, we probably, if we all get it together, we most likely will do a long, long journey up there.